Hello, students. This will be our last time that I would like to talk about the moon. Um, it's our end of our school year, and we won't talk about the moon until September again, God willing. First thing I want to do is I want to read to you the different names that the Indians came up with for the moons. Now, I want you to think about this. They didn't have the calendars that we usually use. So they used something that was pretty consistent, and that is the moon. God placed the moon in an orbit around the Earth in just the right place. It has a certain amount of days that it goes around. It's very consistent with its phases. And so by the moon and the seasons, they came up with names. And the Indians, sometimes they would have 12 names for the moons and sometimes 13, depending on the tribe, because the phases of the moon happen every 29.5 days. Sometimes there can be 13, right, full moons in the same year. So they had to figure out how to account for that, and they did that in different ways. But they didn't have this type of calendar, did they? No, they used the things around them. And it's so nice what God has given us for many reasons. So let's start with January. January, they called January, think of what January is like, the wolf or the hunger moon. February, they called that the snow moon. March, they called that the worm or the sap moon. Now we learned that worms kind of like hibernate. They sleep for that cold winter. So they start coming up then. And sap moon, well, the sap in the tree starts running. April, the grass moon, pink moon. And we talked about the phlox flower blooming, and a lot of phlox are pink. Egg, or some of the Indians will also call that the worm moon. And it depended on the tribe, too, what they would call the moons. The settlers, once they came to America, they adopted some of these names, and that's why we remember them. And you'll find them in the Farmer's Almanac, too, if you know what that is. So we went to April, the grass, the pink moon, egg, or worm moon. And in May, that's the flower moon. And I'm sure you can guess why they would call it the flower moon. They also would sometimes call it the milk moon. Maybe the cows gave birth in May. I tried to find out why they would call it a milk moon, and I didn't find the answer. Maybe you can. I thought, well, maybe they start giving birth and there's extra milk coming in at that time. June, they would call the flower or strawberry moon. Now, there's a lot of varieties of strawberries that do start producing in June. So you can gather strawberries and harvest them in June. July, the hay or thunder moon. Also, I found out they can call it the buck moon because the antlers are fully developed by that time in July. Hay, July, that would be grown and you could start harvesting it. Thunder moon. I wonder what happens in July when there's hot and you get those cumulonimbus clouds. Yeah, you get some thunder, right? August. They call that the thunder or the corn moon. You can start harvesting corn then. And the full sturgeon moon, when sturgeon is a fish. So that would be in some northern states where you could catch the sturgeon easily on their run. September, the harvest moon. Another good corn harvesting month and other crops. October, the hunter's moon. And when I looked that up, besides going hunting, it's also when the animals start fattening up for the winter. So it is a good time to hunt and get the choicest meat, I guess. November, the beaver moon. Now, beavers make a lodge, and so they're tucking away food and getting ready to go into their lodge for the winter. And December, they call that the cold or long night moon. And you can understand that too. The nights are definitely longer than the days. I'm going to read to you a poem about the moon. The Moon by Robert Louis Stevenson. The moon has a face like the clock in the hall. She shines on thieves on the garden wall, on streets and fields and harbor quays, and birdies asleep in the forks of the trees. The squalling cat and the squeaking mouse, the howling dog by the door of the house, the bat that lies in bed at noon, all love to be out by the light of the moon. But all of the things that belong to the day cuddle to sleep to be out of her way, and flowers and children close their eyes till up in the morning the sun shall arise. And that was by Robert Louis Stevenson, and I thought that was a nice moon poem. Now we're going to go to the phases. Let's remember how the earth is in the center. The sun is shining. Doesn't have a picture of the sun on here. And the phases of the moon as it goes around the earth. Okay? The first phase is officially the new moon. And then after that, the light is on the right and the moon is getting bright. It's waxing. And it starts with a crescent, and you'll notice the phases end with a crescent. Okay? So we have the waxing crescent all the way up to the first quarter. Then we're into this egg shape gibbous, that's right. And the light is on the right, so that's a waxing gibbous. And then we hit the full moon. Notice the positions, they're just about opposite each other, of the full moon and the new moon. And then we're waning. We're waning all the way to the new moon. So waning gibbous. The waning third quarter or last quarter. And then the waning crescent. And we're back to the new moon. Okay. Now here we go. Let's look at May. Let's start with just... Some of the students are still just doing Thursdays and Fridays, like we did at school. And so I'll start with May, and we'll just go over. The full moon was on the 7th. And after the full moon, we start waning till we get to the new moon. So waning gibbuses all the way till we get to the last quarter. And now the light is on the left, remember? And then after the last quarter, we start getting into those waning crescents all the way. Whoop, 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 whoop. And this week, we had a waning crescent. Well, we haven't had it yet because I'm recording this on Wednesday. But we're still going to have waning crescents all the way till Thursday. And then, of course, this gets thinner and thinner. And then we have the start of a new phase. We got the new moon. After we hit the new moon, we start waxing, and the light is on the right. And we ended with a waning crescent, and we're starting with a waxing crescent. And then we'll have waxing crescent all the way till we hit next Friday. Will be the first quarter. The light is on the right. And then after we hit the quarter, then we're going to have a waxing gibbous. And that will continue until June. June, the full moon, will be on Friday. Okay, June. I think that was called the strawberry moon. That was one of its names. So June 5th will be the first, will be the full moon in June. And then the first quarter will be the following week. The new moon will be on Father's Day and the start of summer. That will be the new moon. And then we'll continue into the first quarter. And the moon is pretty regular. So that's why the Indians did their calendar by the seasons and the moon. Let me show you the May calendar for those that are doing all of the phases. We'll start with the full moon. Then we go to, it's going to be a gibbous. We're going to wane. So, see, I just have a little bit of dark shadow here. And so we're waning gibbuses all the way to the next week where we hit the last quarter. Then we're going to wane a crescent. Waning crescents, getting thinner and thinner and thinner until we hit the new moon. And then this is where it starts again. The new moon, I'm sorry, is on the 22nd. And then we start waxing. The light is on the right. The moon is getting bright. And we wax our crescents. Oh, they get a little bigger until we hit the first quarter. Then we go into waxing gibbuses, all right, as we get ready to hit the full moon in June. And some of you are doing so well with learning the moon phases and tracking them. And it's just very interesting to me because it's something that God made and put in just the right position. And we can track our seasons by it. It gives us light at night. And He's an amazing Lord, amazing creator. So that's why we study it. Just, he's very precise, and he's the king of math. All right. God bless you, and have a great summer. Be moon watchers. Bye-bye.